So I mean, there was two comments that I made. One was, I thought that the price needed to be a little bit higher because of a weighted average, but I'm not going to quibble over $700 for the chance of, having discourse on the council. However, I do think that we don't want to be. We have a very limited staff here, as you may have followed in the papers. There's a lot less people than we used to have, and we really don't want to get into administration and keeping track of things. And so the second proposal I made was one flat fee, and so the way it's been calculated out and shown in the books is then $2,400. Send the check in, and then we're done. Is there a problem with that?
Oh, I'm very comfortable with that.
So,
I can live with that.
I just don't think we ought to tinker with this. I think we ought to go ahead and go with the with what's been proposed here. It's for this year, and try to make any changes.
well, I'd like to propose that we consider the $2,400 as a flat fee and just be done with it. Is there a second or no?
I'll second that. Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work. Have a good season.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, next item. Elizabeth pulled number 16, which is the result of an analysis on the no right turn restrictions on Holbrook Lane.
We'll defer to Mike Kashawagi.
Don't really have any specific staff report. The information or staff presentation. The information in the report, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. We did implement the no right turn. We took before traffic counts to ensure that we were able to identify the impacts. And we also took two subsequent traffic counts after the installation. And what we found is that the no right turn was very effective in reducing AM traffic down Holbrook. It reduced it by over 60%, with minimal impact to the two other streets we monitored, which was Palmer and San Benito. So our recommendation at this point is to maintain the no right turn.
Any questions from the council?
My only comment was I think that there might be residents here. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I forgot I'm on the list.
Okay.
Are there any other questions on the council? No. Okay. Public comments with regards to item 16. Okay. Seeing none, then we will close the public comments on item 16. We'll come back to the council.
I move we accept item 16.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. We're moving ahead. We're going to set a record today. Okay. Number 20, the EIR review process for the library, and considering that the council accept the Planning Commission's offer to assist in the review of this document. So,
Councilmember McKeithen pulled it, so we'll take questions.
It's not really a question, it's just I'd like to say that I, as a member of the Library Building Steering Committee, together with a conversation I had with the head of the Library Building Steering Committee, want to say that we welcome having the Planning Commission hear comments regarding the final EIR. We do have a question, that, however, we want to make sure that the procedure is top-notch. And to that effect, we know that SEQA requires a minimum 10-day, and we were going to shoot for at least a 30-day. Given the fact that the publication of the final EIR is supposedly June 18th, and the Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for June 27th, I know that we're going to have a comment period that goes beyond June 27th, but the June 18th to June 27th is 9 days. Is there any problem with that being 9 days and not 10 days, given the fact that the comment period extends beyond June 27th?
Right, the comment period would extend until the city council considers the final EIR, so it could remain open that entire time.
Okay, so there's not a problem with that, someone saying it's a 9-day comment period before the planning commission?
Correct, because they still have the opportunity to comment before the final certification at the city council meeting.
My other request would be that, given the fact that the planning commission would be hearing it, and LSA might be doing something, I would request that we, in addition, so that everything is fair and open and people have a full opportunity to make whatever statements or voice whatever considerations they might like, that we hear this at a separate council meeting and not together with other items on a council meeting at that July council meeting. And to that end, that 30 days or so after the planning commission meeting, namely at, I guess it would be at the July, it would be the July 25th, would be the week after. If we could hold a special meeting on July 25th, the week after, to hear the final EIR, that would be 30 days after the planning commission meeting. So that it wouldn't be with other agenda items, and the public would have a full 30 days after the planning commission to have an opportunity to review.
So would you see that as an afternoon?
Afternoon, evening?
Evening?
Is that when the planning commission meets?
The planning commission meets on the 25th at 6 o'clock, so if you were to meet another night of that week, I would recommend an evening meeting. Sometimes afternoon meetings, people have conflicts with work schedules. And the earlier you have that date available, we can send out a notice much in advance, like you said, to give that longer public review time.
May I suggest Tuesday the 24th?
I don't know, I think Wednesdays, given people, you normally expect council meetings on Wednesdays.
It's just a regular planning commission meeting that night. And I would
On July
expect-
25th, it's a regular, and July 25th.
1, 2, 3. Yes,
Oh, okay. Okay, 24th?
I mean, I can talk to the commission about adjusting their schedule as well, if you prefer to have it on the 25th.
I think that would
You
be.
do outright from a bit.
Yeah,
Jim, what do you think, 24th, 25th?
No, the 24th is not a good day for me. The 25th would be fine, or the 26th would be
How
fine.
about the 26th?
26th would be fine.
so I have a sub-region a housing committee meeting that night. For our housing.
Let's go for the 25th.
Okay, and I'll speak to the planning commission and see if we can reschedule that meeting.
25th, 26th, or even a Saturday meeting.
Let's leave it on for Wednesday.
Yeah, we've had some Saturday meetings already.
Okay.
And
And we can
maybe
keep it on a Wednesday so that people know
Wednesday, yeah, do you mind having it at 6 o'clock, or would you like 7
6
o'clock?
o'clock would be
usual
good.
time?
AM would be great.
PM,
PM, 6 o'clock, that way
Depends on how
people,
many people you want to come.
we want people to come. If they have a comment, we want them to come.
okay, so we'll look at July 25th at 6 PM for city council. Thank
So
you.
that's the 26th, is that what?
26th.
25th is Wednesday, so.
All right.
And Jim, you pulled this, do you have an additional
Yeah.
comment?
I want to make a comment. I'll go along with Councilmember McKeithen's suggestions, but, I went to the planning commission meeting, and frankly, to some extent, to my surprise, there weren't that many issues raised there, and LSA seemed to address them properly. I'm not really sure why it needs to go back to the planning commission one more time. I frankly think that, it could come directly to the council. So, I'll go along with Councilmember McKeithen, but I really don't know, in view of the rather small number of comments that we had at the last planning commission meeting, why it needs to go back to the planning commission. That's my comment.
Our only thought is we want the public to be given every opportunity they can
Well,
to
that's
say
fine.
whatever it
If it's
is.
politically correct, I'll go along with it.
Thank you.
Any other council comment? Then we'll take public comments on item number 20. Are there any public comments on item number 20? Seeing none, come back to council. So do we have a motion to approve the recommendation and schedule a meeting for the 25th
At 6 p.m.
26.
at 6 p.m.
Well, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. That closes the consent portion of the calendar.
I move that we accept the consent calendar.
We did that.
You did? Okay, well, doubling.
Okay, so now we go to item 22, which is our fiscal 2012-2013 operating and capital improvement budget, which is the first formal review of the total budget, and it will be re-reviewed next month in its in final version. So, Teresa?
Staff's ready to give you a presentation. And then we talked about possibly continuing this meeting if we don't get through it all. If you decide you want to do that, you can take a vote either now or at the end of the presentation. Oh, we have it.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council and members of the budget. Tonight we're here to introduce the operating and capital budget to you. This is still a work in process. We're here tonight to get some feedback from the council, and we will return and present the final budget to the council for approval at the regular meeting on June 20th, I believe it is. So tonight I'm going to go over some of the general fund departments, some of the special funds and internal service funds. I'm also going to have Police Chief Ed Flint speak to the police department, and Public Works Director Mike Kawasaki is going to speak about Public Works building and the CIP. And we're happy to answer any questions for you. And we'll also be opening a public hearing this evening.
It might be worthwhile for people that are on this side to be able to move over so you can see the presentation if you so choose.
There's also hard copies of the presentation at the back door.
There's a few
Oh, is there
hard
handouts?
copies. Yeah, there's a few handouts.
I'm electronic.
Let's see. So I think previously the council's gone through a process of establishing goals. We're still working on that. These are the major goals that have been identified. The council is going to continue to work on prioritizing these goals with staff. And so in the final budget document, we hope to have a prioritized list. We're not going to go over the details of the goals this evening since we've spent a couple of budget work sessions going over them. But we're happy to speak to them if necessary. They are included in the staff report budget document. So the general fund is the largest fund in the town's budget. We previously spoke about revenues a little bit. Property tax is the largest revenue source to the general fund. I've included in this pie chart the special parcel tax as well, which is about 10% of the general fund resources in this budget year. Franchise tax, building department revenues, and the sum of other revenues make up the total resources of the general fund. Here you can kind of see the trends of where we've been, what's been going on over the past several years. There was quite a dip in total revenue in 2009. It's been growing a little bit. 2012 still saw a little bit of reduction, and we're projecting a slight increase, about 2.5% overall in general fund revenues for next fiscal year. So not to repeat what we did before, but since property tax is the largest revenue source, I just wanted to give you a picture of what the trends look like there. In general, assessed values have, continued to go up through history, although for a couple of years they did drop down and our property tax declined slightly. We're seeing that the county is projecting maybe a 3% growth rate. And so we've projected a 2.3% overall growth in our property tax, just to be a little bit conservative, which is just over $7 million. Building department revenue, it's based on development that's going on in the community, so it does vary up and down. This year we did see, in the last part of this year, we've seen some growth in our development activity, and we expect it to grow next year as well. Franchise taxes, they're pretty standard with cable and utilities. The water rates went up last year, therefore the city was received a greater amount of water franchise tax, and we've spoke about the solid waste tax, which has increased, and therefore our revenue has increased. Sales tax here in Atherton is a small part of our budget. It's mainly based on use tax that's paid by the residents of the town. They're legally bound to pay use tax when they purchase something that is not taxed in the general public. Sometimes that's home businesses that are paying use tax to the town, or if somebody buys some type of special item that isn't a retail item. That's why there was a spike this year. There was a retail item that was quite valuable that was submitted for use tax, and so we're budgeting next year to be about the same as 2011, removing that spike out.
Did you check in the horse sales tax that was
I
asked about?
I haven't double checked that, but so far it doesn't look like we're going to get tax from the horse sales.
It's a good try.
So that's kind of the revenue picture. I'm going to kind of quickly go through the presentation, and you can stop me when you have some questions. Overall general fund expenditures. The picture here, you can see the police department's a significant part of our services that are provided by the town. The building department, the public works department, we're going to go over the details of that later. I can speak a little bit to the administrative costs that are listed there in just a moment. The trends for expenditures have not shown incredible growth, but have grown at a rate probably equal to or greater than what the revenues have. You can see in a later chart with the fund balances. In 2012, there's a little bit of increase there that has to do partly with this one-time payment that we're making for solid waste contribution. It's a negotiated agreement that we made with the waste hauler to pay back some prior year losses that they had. It was divided up into 4 quarters. 3 of the quarters hit in this fiscal year under 2012, and the last quarter hits in 2013. I think that's the majority of the large spike there. So here, I showed this to the council before. These are the fund balance trends over the last several years. The fund balances have been going down. Fund balance is somewhat like retained earnings, or revenues minus expenditures equal what you have left over. The council has several fund balance policies. We have 15% of operating expenditures are to be reserved for emergency purposes. And then the council also said that our fund balance should never go below the 20% of operating expenditures. So that's kind of the pink or purple shaded bar there as a placeholder. The building department collects money before providing services, so we've historically reserved that revenue until it's earned. And then this year, in the 2013 year, I just wanted to show the council if we were to set aside an amount to pay off the PERS loan that we have. It's called PERS side funds, which I'll speak about a little bit more. That would be that $1.9 million there in the red. It's kind of at the top. And then there would be a slight unassigned amount left in the fund balance. So, we spoke about what can we do about these trends declining. And in the staff report, I mentioned all the work that had been done at the beginning of this fiscal year. So it made it very easy for me to balance the general fund budget. The council and the staff had gone through significant analysis and decided to contract out many of the town's services, and that really has made an impact on the cost of providing services to the town. So it's made a positive reflection on our bottom line, and I can see that the fund balance will be able to grow with the changes that have been made earlier this year and the things that I think that we can tackle within the next year. One of the things that can reduce our cost over the next year and going forward is paying off this side fund that I spoke to. So a while ago, PERS decided to take all of the agencies that contract with them to provide retirement pension services. And they said, if you're a small agency, we're going to put you all in one pot, and since we're going to charge you the same rates, we have to equalize where everybody's starting point is. So they set up a little bit of a loan with every single agency. They called that a side fund. So the town of Atherton There's a handout on your dais that kind of tells you what our side fund is. But the gist is, if we pay off the loan, we can be saving over 7% interest over the next 5 to 8 years. And I think the council has actually spoke to this before. It's been at the finance or audit committees in the past. And I would be very interested in presenting you with a staff report at your next meeting to provide you with a complete analysis of what that would be. I briefly mentioned in the staff report it could reduce our safety PERS rates from 39.9% to 26% immediately starting July 1st. So that's something that we couldn't really make that recommendation until we saw what the budget looked like as a whole, and it does show that we have some money in reserve and that there could be a significant savings to the town by reducing those retirement contribution rates going forward. You know, in some of the areas also where we can look to save money for the next year is in the salary and benefit area. And I think the council is working on developing some compensation and benefit philosophies that we'll be bringing forward in the future. So that's my big picture overview. I'm going to highlight a few of the areas within administration, and then I'm going to pass it on to Chief Flint. So in the budget document, the city council budget, there's a few areas where I just want to point out to you that we might appreciate your direction. In the city council's budget, we did add an amount of $14,000 to set aside money for a facilitated workshop if the council would like to do that in the future. It's something that when the new city manager comes on board, it might be useful. Another area is in membership and dues. There's a few areas of dues. The League of California Cities is one that I don't question, but you may want to confirm the Airport Roundtable and the Hart Endowment, I think is what Teresa just spoke to in her city manager's report. Also in the city council's budget.
That was a different one. That was the HIP housing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The Environmental Programs Committee has an allocation of $5,000 in your budget. And then there's a few carryovers of some capital items for sound system and recording system that we didn't spend this year and we're going to carry forward next year. The administration budget has 3 staff members budgeted, a city manager for the full year, a city clerk for the full year, and an office specialist. I did go over the city attorney's budget with the city attorney. He's confirmed that this is what he would recommend for your review. And then in the finance budget, there are also 3 staff members in there. There's a full-time finance director budgeted for 10 months of the year. An interim finance director for 3 to 4 months is covered in there so that there can be some flexibility on what the council decides to do and the city manager decides to do in that area. Many of the other costs are, audit related. We included $10,000 for revenue audits. The council can develop their priorities. And then the other area I wanted to touch on was an area called non-departmental, where we sometimes put things that don't belong to a specific department. It's on page 26 and 27. In that area, in the past, we've budgeted for code enforcement services in the building department and in this non-departmental area. In the 2012 current year, code enforcement services are included in non-departmental, but for 2013, we've moved it to the building department, so you'll see it in those 2 areas. We've also included the park master plan for $30,000 in the non-departmental budget. And there's a few contributions to Sustainable Silicon Valley, the Human Investment Project that you just mentioned, and another one is Sustainable San Mateo County that I just want the council to be aware that those are in the budget at the same level as they were last year. Also, the solid waste contribution that I spoke of the last quarter is included in the 2013 year for $84,000. And then the election, it's possible there's an election in 2013, so we budgeted $20,000 in there. And there are some infrastructure plan items that were identified earlier in the year. Nothing has been spent on that. The funding has been set aside for several projects, some of them identified in the council goals, and we're carrying forward all those expenditures to the new year. So that's the area of administration. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them before we go on to the police department.
Yeah, first off, There are a lot of subscriptions, as you pointed out, and memberships and dues. And while you identified some you believe are appropriate based on your experience, other ones we're not really sure. I'd asked the city manager, but now we'd like to formally, more or less ask that we get a rendering of all the different dues and subscriptions, and we have an understanding at the next meeting when we approve the budget so that we understand exactly what benefit we're getting out of all those. In austere times, private industry substantially cuts back on those memberships, subscriptions, and dues. And I think that, and I've brought this up personally, both when I was outside the council as well as last year while I was on the council. And I believe that we really need to understand what it is we're getting for that. In many cases, we're contributing to organizations that are spending money in other towns, but not in this town. And while that is, it's good to be a good corporate citizen, and oftentimes, and I see Mr. Dudley out, and he'll be happy to tell us how much money we spend with Caltrain, and we don't get anything for that. So we want to understand what we need to do, what we need to spend, and what we're getting in return for it. In many cases, it might be contractually obligated, or it pays off so we can get an insurance policy, etc. But let's find out what we've got. Okay, so can we have an action item for that? Okay. And I assume that we'll be able to ask some questions on this, as you kind of blew through them, but you're willing to take some questions after a little bit, right?
Just through the chair, would it not be helpful if we let the staff go through all of this as a high-level overview, as she's doing, and then if we had another budget workshop that we could get down into all the nitty-gritty and talk about all the, let staff come back to us with the analysis of all the subscriptions in great detail and what they feel is good with it, and then we could debate between ourselves rather than doing it all tonight. I think that there were 3 dates that were offered up for June 4th, 5th, and 6th as possible dates for a workshop.
Well, I saw the email, and I understood from the city manager that perhaps there were other council members who didn't necessarily agree that there needed to be a workshop. So I mean, we can do one of 2 things, and we can take a vote as to whether or not we want to do it. We can press forward and see what we can get through in a reasonable amount of time, and then decide if we need to ask for a continuance. I'm willing to go with whatever anybody else wants to have. I mean,
I guess what's a reasonable amount of time? We've gone to 1 o'clock in the morning before. Is that a reasonable amount of time? No. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes that.
Mr. Mayor, I was able to sit down and get most of my questions addressed already, so I don't have that many questions left.
I have also had some of mine addressed. I don't really think that I need a special session.
I had only one last remaining question, and I got it answered this afternoon, so my questions have been addressed.
The final budget will come back next month, so staff will field questions all month long individually.
I guess I'm kind of concerned about all the dues and the subscriptions, the detail of that, and how we're going to cut and slice and dice that. And then some of the other memberships that we belong to, like the Heart Board and the HIP Housing, and there was several other, the Airport Roundtable. I know that the Airport Roundtable has cut its fees for our participation to $750 a year, and to me that's something that is so insignificant, and we do really have a voice in our region there. So to my opinion, that should not be on a chopping block for $750. The Heart Board, one of our police officers was able to use, while we don't benefit from low-income housing being built in our jurisdiction, some of our employees have benefited from the Heart organization of low-income housing, and we do have a police officer who did use the Heart model to buy their first house. So I just think that, you know, if we're going to itemize those types of things that are going to be deleted from the budget, we need to kind of truly understand and have more discussion about the benefits that we get, which may not be immediately apparent because we are a single-family residential community and we have no high density, we have no commercial, things like that.
Okay, but I don't think we were eliminating anything. I think, and I don't think that based on, I mean, the council could vote and say, you know, we want to get rid of this, but I would think that my intent is to, you know, I sat down with Teresa yesterday and I went through every one of these little tabs, and there are numerous, but, and I've got a number of the questions answered, but I'd like to at least make other council members as well as staff aware of some concerns that I have. Then there can be some discussion over the next month, and they can decide what to do, what not to do, get us more information or not, but I don't think we're saying definitely tonight. We're not approving the budget, we're just saying, giving an indication of where we sit with it. Such as, you know, we looked at the number with the, well, I think everybody, I can't speak for everybody, I can speak for my 20% of the vote. This pension pay down is something I'm very interested in. However, looking at that number, if I'm reading the chart right, puts us dangerously close to our reserve and leaves very little room for error. And so, you know, while I'm 100% in favor of doing something like that, me personally, you know, I'm not sure that 1.9 million is the number I would be able to sleep well at night, given the fact that we occasionally overspend.
You know, actually, this isn't the first time that this has been brought to council to do that. I know that back in 2009, another council member brought it forward to council and it was shot down. But I think that we have some compelling information here of, you know, what the benefit is going to be, and maybe even on a sliding scale. So that's something we should consider. And if we can debate that, we're going to debate that now or approve it in July. Yeah.
I certainly think we should pay down some of it. Whether we pay down all of it, 1.9 million, not, because the pay down saves us a very large amount of money. And I think we need to pay down as much as we can afford, but bearing in mind your concerns about safety. One other item I want to bring up just for consideration is conferences. You know, it's not so much the conference fees, but when we send somebody to a conference, the cost of sending people to conferences, you know, is 2 or 3 days, hotels, travel time. And you know, I've been at hundreds of conferences in my day, and you know, I've got to say that most of the time, I didn't really get a lot out of them. And I think we should be very careful because one of the things I think we should do for everybody that goes to a conference is when he or she returns, that they make a report of what they learned at the conference so that we can see if it was really worthwhile or not. Because, you know that when I went to conferences occasionally, you know, you could add a day or two here and there for pleasure purposes and charge it to the company. I'm not saying I did that, but I know that other people did it. And you know, I think now that we're so tight with money here in town, we really have to be careful about stuff like that. So I would just say, look at how much we're going to spend in conferences, see if they're absolutely necessary, and if they are necessary, I want everybody that goes to file a report on the conference, what they learned, what they did, so that we can see whether it was worthwhile or not.
Okay. So, is there a budget item that's for conferences in the budget? Deborah, do you have?
There are separate line items throughout the different divisions that speak to conferences. Where there are staff, there are usually lines.
And what's the general, you know, aggregate total?
I think maybe each professional staff goes to one conference per year, the city manager's annual conference, the finance officer's annual conference, the city clerk's annual conference. We do get a lot of continuing education at that, so we're happy to provide an analysis of the value that we receive.
But we don't count the time, I don't think we count the time, the people time spent at conference.
The cost in here is just the value of the cost of going to the
If somebody goes there for 3 days, it's 3 days away from work that they're doing.
As I remember, when I one time checked on this, it's much higher in the police department because they're obligated to attend certain conferences for training purposes. And sometimes they're only given in certain, am I right about this, Ed? They're only given in certain locations, so they have to go to these locations and attend these conferences for certain training sessions.
With respect to training, you're absolutely right. There are some mandated training. What I've done in the police department from a year ago was to break our training down into 3 categories. There's mandated, there's required, and there's desirable. And we do the mandated stuff first. And then if we can get some of the required, like for instance, if you have a detective, that would be required training for that job classification. And then if there's anything else. But I will say one thing, Councilmember Dobby, we have been doing that. When somebody goes to training, they are required to put on a little demonstration and go over what they brought back and learned. And that's just to double up on that training effort and hope that other people gain something from that.
Well, that's very good. I really think that's an excellent idea.
Any other questions before we go back to?
I'll just say that as a council member, I've attended several conferences, and I've only charged the town for the registration fee, or the town has only paid the registration fee on that. I've got my own hotel and food and all that sort of thing. And I also have included a report, the council comments as to what I felt was valuable from the council standpoint.
I can say the same thing from the League of Cities boot camp, new members, new council members and mayors conferences I've gone. So it's I haven't charged travel time or anything like that, and it's been very beneficial.
Jerry does the best job on
Yes,
anybody
he
on
does.
the council with reports.
Yes, he does.
It's true. It's true. There's one in the report today. Okay, so are we going to talk about the individual funds later on as we get through this?
Oh,
So I'd